Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to Anna Porter Public Library. Give yourself a round of applause for coming tonight. We're very excited to have Sonia here. She actually was one of the key speakers to the King Family Library's amazing display on the Americans and the Holocaust. They actually are the only library in Tennessee that was accepted for the application. It's actually an exhibit that's in the Smithsonian that they had on loan. It's the purpose of having libraries across America put on display, and it ended yesterday. Sonia was one of our key players. I had the privilege of being able to come and hear her speak, and I asked her if she's willing to squeeze her schedule into coming and speaking with us as well. She is a Holocaust survivor. She's actually a hidden child, and what she's going to do is talk about her story, how she survived, and the sacrifice her parents made to have her here today. So without further ado, take up any more of her time. Everyone, please welcome Sonia.
Thank you. I need to go backwards. Okay.
What's up?
And
Like one, and so.
okay.
Yep.
Alrighty.
You all set?
Got it.
All right, yay.
I'm not a techie, okay? You understand. This is a picture of my parents, who I never knew. That's because they gave me up when I was less than 2 years old, when they were taken to the trains that eventually took them to Auschwitz, and they became 2 of the 6 million Jews who perished. You know, I used to say, I lost my parents. I didn't lose them, they were murdered. We had a holding camp where they went to first, Westerbork, and that was like, they call it the waiting room to Auschwitz. Mother and Daddy only lived until they were 29 years old. The old city is where Mother and Daddy started, kept house. But in May of 1942, excuse me, the city was bombed. Rotterdam was bombed for 3 hours straight. And the picture on the right is what resulted. I've been back a couple of times, and there are still some old buildings. Not many in Rotterdam, but in other villages. So they have built new modern buildings right next to what was the original city. The man on the right is Dolph Hankes. You can even look him up as a famous artist today. He and Daddy were good friends. Daddy painted that picture. Now, that's not someone's original rendering. He's had some practice, but he didn't live long enough to become professional. That little note says, please come and see us. You know we're going to have to leave this week. Come and say goodbye, you and your brother and your sister. I don't know if they ever did get that message because post office wasn't very functional at the time. And they left on the 30th. The note was written on the 26th. Excuse me. So, since they gave me away to Dolph, you just don't leave your kid with a stranger. They were close friends. And that's where they left me behind with Dolph. He was in the underground, but he couldn't keep me. It was just a temporary thing until he found me a safe place. That's the railroad in to Auschwitz. And there were very, very few people who made it out. It was also said in my country, excuse me, that was the Netherlands, that, Jews couldn't own property anymore. They didn't have jobs. So the surmise was, we know you can't take care of your families, but we'll go east and you'll have jobs. And that's what that sign says over that snowy sign. It says, Arbeit maakt vrij. Work will make you free. The lie carried them all the way in to their deaths. And every camp had that saying, because that was what was said. We'll give you jobs. You'll be able to take care of your family. I want you to tell me who you don't see. You see children, no men. You know why? They were already selected to be laborers. They kept the place running. But I understand they lasted about 6 weeks until they were marched off to the crematorium. That is because there was hardly any food given to them. The hours were terrible. The places where they slept were full of vermin, lice, so they died very quickly as well. I look at that picture and I cry. Look at those little children. Look at that little girl in front. And know that everybody was stripped of their clothing before they went into the showers. Can you imagine that? Poor innocent little kids. Meanwhile, Clara, that's my birth name, by the way, Clara Van Tyne. And people say, well, why didn't you go back to that once you were grown and you knew the truth? Well, I don't remember answering to it. I was too little. I'm sure I did, but I stuck with Sonia, and I'll tell you how I got that name. Now, Dolph and I went across the country. Now, the country's not very big, as you can see, but we went all the way east where there was a chicken house where I was supposed to be kept. And the reason I was to go to that special place is that my aunt, Daddy's sister, was hidden there as well. So at least there'd be somebody to take care of the kid, right? Well, conditions were pretty awful in there. And he decided it was not a place for a 2.5-year-old. So he came back and picked me up, and we went to Rotterdam. This is a very good thing because the people who were hidden there lived there for another 1.5 years until they were betrayed. I could have been there. I could have gone to camp as well. But I call that my second saving. We went to a community where Dolph lived, had a studio called Katendrecht. If there was any place that was going to be a bit safer than anywhere else, it was there. I'll tell you why. There were streetwalkers there, bawdy houses. And Nazi soldiers weren't allowed on the whole island. I'm sure some came, but most of them were forbidden. And you had to get there by water, with a boat. The lady there next to the house where I was hidden way on top for a while, so that Nazi wouldn't come looking. Or the local police wouldn't take Nazi soldiers up there. Think of, the story of Anne Frank. The Nazi soldiers kicked down the bookcase, but how did they know where it was? Where was the attic hideout? Betrayed by the local police. They took them in, and the Nazi soldiers took it from there. Thea is the one who took me in a little tugboat across the Maas River to Rotterdam proper. Now I remember that smells take me back. There's such a strong memory that I remember that black smoke going over my head and that smell of the coal. So Dolph had meanwhile found a safe place for me. Now this picture was taken a little bit after the war, so I'm a grown-up kid. These are Mom and Pop. They're the foster parents who kept me. As a matter of fact, I lived with them the rest of their lives. We came to the United States in 1952, family of 3. Now, can you find me in that picture? Okay. Right. And why was it so easy for you to pick me out?
Because you're not a blonde.
Yeah, not red hair, blonde, very, very dark, right? And um, there was a lot of room for betrayal there. The parents who picked the kids up, how'd she get there? How'd this little dark-haired girl get there? Who is it? No answers were given. Mom and Pop just, blew it off. When it got too tense, we moved across town. Big deal. You know, from here to what? Seymour? Couldn't do that today. But there were no newspapers, no phones, certainly no these phones. So I was kind of hidden out in the open, as I'm told. There's some things I remember from that period of time. I call the people who helped save me villagers. You've heard the saying, it takes a village to bring a child up. This was true. I'm here to tell you it was true. I was told to never, ever, ever go near the picture window. The picture window on the second floor, you could see the street very easily. Don't do that. Well, what happens when you tell a kid not to do it over and over? What did they do? Yes, I fell, and I walked through the window. What brought me there was it was late afternoon, drizzling, and I thought there was a parade going by. I heard a drum, and that's what brought me there. Well, there were no fancy uniforms, no instrument, just that drum beat. We lived a half a mile away from the train station. So these men and boys walked past our house, around the corner to the train station, and were never seen again either. Now, you can't bring up a child on soup kitchen food, and that's what was happening in cities. Went with their little kettle, piece of brown or black bread, and some soup. So I was never hungry, though. There was a family, a village, some of my villagers, who fed me a hot meal every day. And I used to walk there and I know I didn't cross streets, but must have been around a few corners. And it wasn't until recently, actually, that I wondered why they sent me by myself. I was just a little kid. I was wearing this navy cape lined in red. The coat was made from a police uniform. So it was very warm. Oh, and here's where smells come in again. When wool gets wet and then it dries again, gets damp again, it has a certain musty odor, doesn't it? This is hard to explain in schools because who wears wool anymore? So we talk about used bookstores. Think of a used bookstore. You walk in that musty flavor. So so there was another lady who lived across the way from us, and there was a little farm, and she had managed to keep a cow. And so I hope not every day. she would bring over, she had a pond, she pushed herself across the little river and brought me milk from a cow. Now, it wasn't pasteurized, so how did they pasteurize it? They boiled it, and it was very rich milk. And so what rises to the surface? A skin. That was the best thing for me. But I spent a lot of time turning that cup so I didn't have to make contact with the skin. Um, yeah, we're ready for the next slide. There's a lot more stories in there. Some in my book. That's my memoir. They're available on Amazon. The Canadians were the first ones that liberated us. And they drove through town with these big tanks, and they did what happened to the Christmas parade. What did they throw off the? Yeah, candy and little packs of Lucky Strike. I'll always remember the white packages with the red circle. They must have been half packages. So Hershey bars, cigarettes, and bazooka bubblegum. And that was my, why she didn't take some healthy chocolate, it's beyond me now. But I chewed more bazooka bubblegum than anybody. When my grandchildren came and tried to use that toothpaste in my house, it was not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Shortly after the war, this lady, Tante C, and she really was an aunt, blood relation. She was married to a well-to-do businessman who was Christian and laid low, and they were not after mixed marriages yet. So she brought some papers, a few wedding gifts, but most importantly, she brought me my garnet necklace. It's the only possession I have that was mother's, and I treasure it. And I only wear it on special occasions like this. So, yeah, we became friends. We'd go over and visit her family. Now, she had every right to take me. I was a Jewish waif. She was had a Jewish family. But her youngest was a high school senior. Not a good time to start over with a 2-year-old, right? And they decided that I was well cared for by mom and pop. So that's where I stayed. This picture went to everybody. It was a professionally taken photographer took this. And when we went to the United States, I think all their acquaintances, mom and pop's family, got that picture. It was also the time on a Wednesday afternoon. And the reason I know it was a Wednesday afternoon is that we don't do school on Wednesday afternoon or on Saturday afternoon. So they sat me down and said, well, we're emigrating. We're going to the United States. And you're going to have to practice this word because you have to sign that on your passport. So I learned to write my name when I was 12 years old. And they said, now, do you remember your mother and daddy? No. Okay, so we'll never talk about this. Don't ask, we won't tell, you belong to us. We took care of you, we will always take care of you. we chose you. You know, that's what a lot of adopted parents say to their children. But mine was a big secret. And it took me most of my life to find out who I was. Not really very much before I started writing my memoir. So here I am. No, no, no. Here I am with mom and pop. And it's probably the first smiling picture because I loved being an American. I loved going to school. I had no English when I came, but learned by the seat of my pants, you know, much before ESL. And I'm told I was lingual in about 3 months. Practice makes perfect, you know. So, yeah, being a teen in America was a lot of fun. Um, Kids helped me, teachers helped me. The way I learned was you've seen these workbooks for kindergartners and first grade and second grade. You know, first there's a picture and one letter missing, and then you graduate up. And that's how I was taught. And when I finished a couple of pages, you go see the teacher. Didn't get it right, some student will help you. It was very basic. Now the next picture is here for 2 reasons. Yeah, my editor decided my wedding picture should be in there. But look at the fashion of the day. What's mom wearing? A flower pot. Isn't that cute? Yeah, that was her good hat. And Pop on the other side. Um, I got a telephone call. Now, I knew I didn't have any family, right? They're all perished. Anyhow, I got a phone call, and thank goodness I had an answering machine because it took 3 times before we connected. And so Bev, the lady on the right, called and said, I think we may be cousins. What? I don't think so. And she explained her grandparents got out of Holland on one of the last boats. They went to Cuba. It's the only place they could go. America wasn't taking any. And so, yeah, she's lived, that's Tel Aviv we're looking at. So we went over the following year and met with her and her sister, the lady with the black sweater. They're both gone now. I used to wear her clothes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not looking at the right picture. Shout, honey. Viv is the one on the right. Her sister Jacqueline is the one on the left. I'm in the middle. And I used to wear Jacqueline's clothes. I used to get care packages in Holland after the war. And, you know, I think that's the first time I tasted peanut butter, too. Yeah. And yeah, I was the best dressed wearing her clothes. Um, but it took me about a lifetime to find out who I really was, because of that early silence. But here goes to show that Hitler was not successful. I'm the matriarch of that family. The 3 boys from Georgia, and the others are in Tennessee. I'm very proud of that. And it wasn't until 4 years ago that I went to visit the chicken house. The ruins of it, anyhow. You see it there in the back? And I'm standing in what used to be the doorway. And there's no way I could remember that, right? But I felt I'd been there. I believe in deja vu. I'd been there. This is our last one. That monument is inscribed with 660 names of children from babies to 12 that didn't come back. And I never knew what survivor's guilt meant. I felt it then. By the grace of God, my name should have been there. My 2 little boy cousins' names were there. It was the bravery, the unselfish love that Mother and Daddy had, and all the villagers that helped keep me safe. This I know, that to protect the future, we have to preserve the past. And my qualm is that history is not taught very much anymore, not in public schools, not where I come from, Knoxville. Survivors are dying out. I'm 85 years old. After that, there'll be nobody to tell the story. Yes, books, little paragraphs in history books, but nowhere to tie in to history. So that's my presentation, showing that God still prevents miracles. We're looking at one. Thank you. Talk to me. Questions?
How old were you when you came to the U.S.?
12. Mm-hmm.
That was immediately after you said you were 12?
Yeah. It's when I had my first birthday party. It's so I remember it well. In Holland, people get together and, my aunts and uncles would come, wish me a happy birthday, and then go into the front room and visit with their relatives. This time, place where we lived temporarily, had me a birthday party. There was a dress table, there was favors, there was a cake, all for me. It was a real birthday. New Jersey, yeah. And that's where my girls were born. and we moved to Tennessee. I'm sorry. You can hear me, right? Yeah. Okay. We moved to Tennessee in the late 70s. Yes, sir.
You were 12 years old before you decided to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of awkward, you know?
Why did you end up in? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, when you were young, did you live in a constant fear, or were you too young to understand?
What war was?
Yeah.
No, I did not understand what war was at that age. Um, I really think that it saved my life for me to go see my friends for a hot meal by myself. I thought, why didn't a grown up walk me? Well, you don't stop a little girl. What would you say to her? Was I with an adult? Of course, it would have been stopped. Were you going to ask me something? No.
What city were you born in?
Rotterdam. Yeah.
Would you mind telling me your year, 1937?
Excuse me? Oh, I was born 1940. 10/19/1940. 1940.
What month?
October 19.
I'm a little over you. I was born in September 1940.
Not much.
This lady here,
You just had a birthday too.
now this lady here.
I'm older than you. I was born in 39.
Okay. You win.
How many generations did your parents live in Holland? Netherlands?
How long did they live there?
Uh-huh.
They had always lived there.
They'd always
Yeah,
lived there.
yeah.
So they
Always in the
weren't
same.
from Germany. They were
No.
occupied by the Germans.
Yeah. But they weren't Jewish, you know.
Who?
My foster parents.
Yeah, I knew that.
Right.
But your parents were.
Yes.
Copies of the book with you, or did you?
No, that's it. Amazon. Okay. I used to, my husband used to say, books, she's got a trunk full. Can't do that anymore. Yes.
How did you end up in Tennessee, and why did you stay here?
Good. My husband's father actually had two manufacturing shops, one in Watauga and one in Johnson City. He's getting older and he wanted a manager. Now, Ron was a manager, but he was a construction man. So we had come and camped around here and really liked it. But the job thing didn't work out. But we stayed because we liked the people, we liked the nature around. Mm-hmm.
How did you meet your husband?
You know, there's never a class that skips that question. I love it. Okay, now when I say this sounds rough, and I'll explain it. It was a phone pickup. We both worked for the same construction company. I worked inside as a secretary and later on as a switchboard operator. And he called in from the field. And we had this great big conglomeration phone answering machine. Used to be when I substituted it there, they had the plug boards, and I would shock myself because I was so anxious I would overreach, and touch the copper. But when we got the other, Bell Telephone used to bring people around, prospective customers, and saw how, one person could do 3 operating. So Ron used to call in, and sometimes his people weren't available, so I'd put him on hold, and I'd get back to him, and eventually I had to give him up and let him have his phone call. We were formally introduced by Miss White. She was the this was a Jewish company. She was the Yenta. Anybody understands what that means? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And at a Christmas party, that's when we went to hotels and had big Christmas parties, introduced me to Ron, who I already knew, So,
Do you know why your cousin's family had to go to Cuba and you were allowed into the United States? Was it because
oh, it was time. We didn't go till 52, and they went during the war, actually, yeah. And, Cuba was one of the safe places. Yeah.
When did you start to feel that it was important to know your roots? When you started doing research that led to your book?
When I was bringing up the girls, or we were bringing up the girls, it was on the back burner, because when I started investigating and writing, it took all my senses. There was a time for it, and it wasn't, until much later.
How long after the war were you able to get back there?
Back to Holland?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we could go. Mom used to love to go on the Holland America line by boat. It was a vacation coming and going. And every time she worked, and whenever she had some money, she'd go. And I was to take care of Pop and cook for him, which I liked.
More questions? Did you ever speak to Mom
About this,
about
I tried a couple of times and I was rebuffed. Now, I'll tell you something strange. They had a very close marriage, wonderful to each other. But had Pop survived Mom, I think I would have learned more. She was just very possessive. Yes. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Diary of Anne Frank earlier. Do you have any personal feelings about that book or any literature that was published about the Holocaust?
Oh, you should see my library. Yeah.
What time do you want us?
I'm in the middle of a move, a lot of those books. Yeah. They packed up. They didn't go to McKay's like the rest of my books did, or a lot of them did. I used to carry a reading list. I would recommend, I don't remember who wrote it, a book that will stick with you. And also, there's a movie, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. You heard of it. So yeah, some kids read it in school too, don't they? Yeah. But Nazi just took for granted that Jews were inferior and they were going to really cover all of Europe. With their ideology.
You're an amazing woman. Thanks for telling us your story.
You're welcome.
Just do one more round of
Thank you for
applause.
listening. Oh boy. Thank you.